I found out on my wedding day that my fiancée's friend knew she lied about her past relationships, and I had to decide whether to confront her before saying I do. I woke up that morning feeling like everything in my life had finally fallen into place. The sunlight spilled through the curtains, hitting the polished hardwood floors of our apartment, and for a moment, I let myself breathe. Today was my wedding day. My heart pounded with excitement, a mix of nerves and joy swirling in my chest. I imagined her standing at the end of the aisle, the dress I had dreamed of seeing her in, and the way her eyes would light up when she saw me. I went through the motions of getting ready, tying my tie just right, adjusting the cufflinks, making sure every crease in my suit was perfect. I even caught myself smiling in the mirror, feeling a strange mixture of pride and disbelief. This was real. This was happening. And yet, there was a flicker of unease I couldn't shake off. Maybe it was the feeling that too many things had fallen so perfectly into place, like a puzzle that might suddenly topple over. I brushed it aside. No, today was supposed to be about love, laughter, and commitment. Nothing else mattered. The apartment smelled faintly of fresh coffee and the lavender-scented candles I had lit the night before. Every little detail screamed perfection, yet the pit in my stomach whispered, something is off. You'll see. Soon enough, I tried to push the thought away, shaking off the unease. There would be time for worrying later. For now, I focused on the simple pleasure of anticipation. The moment I would see her walking toward me, the room filled with friends and family, all of us celebrating this union. I had rehearsed this moment in my head 1,000 times, and nothing could have prepared me for what was about to hit me like a sledgehammer. The morning air was crisp, and the streets outside were already alive with the hum of cars and chatter of people heading to their own weekend plans. I could hear faint laughter through the open window, birds circling lazily in the sky. Yet inside me, there was a strange tension. Like the calm before a storm I didn't yet understand. Guests began to arrive in small clusters. Some familiar faces and some distant acquaintances whose names I struggled to remember. Aunt Linda, always too loud, was fussing over her hat, adjusting it every few seconds while muttering about the weather. My best man, Mark, tried to calm her with a grin and a pat on her shoulder, but I could tell he was barely holding back a sigh. I greeted people with practiced smiles, shaking hands, giving hugs. Each interaction felt both joyous and surreal, as though I were floating through someone else's celebration. The floral arrangements filled the room with the scent of lilies and roses, a delicate perfume that almost masked the nervous energy in the air. I noticed the way the sunlight caught on the glasses of champagne, sparkling like tiny diamonds, and it struck me how perfect everything seemed, and how fragile that perfection could be. Then I saw her friend, Jenna, my fiancée's longtime best friend, standing near the doorway, her face unusually pale, her lips pressed into a thin line. She avoided eye contact with me, scanning the room as though searching for something or someone. My stomach clenched. I didn't know why, but something about her presence made the air heavier. I remembered the countless stories she had told my fiancé about her past, always lighthearted, always joking. But there was something in Jenna's posture, the tightness in her jaw, that whispered otherwise. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my tone casual, though my heart was already racing. "You okay?" She looked up quickly, as if caught off guard, then smiled faintly, almost too faint, and nodded. Yeah, just soaking it all in," she said, her voice a touch too high, too careful. She lingered by the doorway for a moment, shifting her weight, and then moved closer to me. Something in my gut screamed at me to pay attention, to read the signs, but I tried to ignore it. "Relax," I told myself. "It's your wedding day. Nothing could possibly ruin this." But as she leaned in slightly, lowering her voice just enough for me to hear, a single, loaded sentence slipped out. "I think you should know some things before it's too late." The words hung in the air, and suddenly, the laughter, the clinking glasses, the cheerful chatter, all of it faded into a distant hum. My heart skipped. I forced a smile, hoping it was just a harmless comment, but the sharpness in her eyes betrayed a truth I wasn't ready to face. And in that moment, the air shifted. The perfect day I had envisioned felt fragile, teetering on the edge of collapse. Something in Jenna's tone, in her expression, promised that what she was about to reveal would change everything. The ceremony hall was beginning to buzz more noticeably now. Waiters weaved through clusters of guests with trays of champagne. Laughter echoed off the high ceilings, and the scent of fresh flowers mixed with the faint aroma of perfume and cologne. I tried to focus on the excitement, on the warmth of seeing all the people we loved gathered in one place. But there was an undercurrent of tension that I couldn't shake. Jenna appeared again, this time closer to me. She kept glancing around as if scanning for someone or something, but her eyes always returned to me, sharp, unblinking. "Can we talk somewhere quiet?" she asked, her voice low, carrying that same hint of urgency that made my stomach twist. That I nodded, forcing a casual smile as I led her to a corner near the windows. The sunlight streamed in, catching the dust motes floating lazily in the air, and for a moment, the scene looked like a postcard. But it was all deceptive. I felt a cold knot tighten in my chest. "Look," she began, her fingers fidgeting with the strap of her bag. I didn't want to say anything here, not now, but I can't stay silent anymore. I froze, the laughter and chatter of the guests fading into background noise. My mind raced, spinning through possibilities. What could she mean? I tried to picture all the happy memories we had shared with my fiancée. The jokes, the late-night talks, the way she always smiled when she saw me. Could any of that be false? She took a deep breath and looked directly at me. "I know you're about to marry her, and you think you know everything about her. But there are things you don't. Things that might change how you see her, how you see today." The words hit me like a cold wave. I swallowed hard, trying to maintain my composure. "What are you talking about?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt inside. Jenna hesitated, glancing around to make sure no one was watching. I didn't want to interfere. I really didn't. "But you deserve to know. She's not the person you think she is." Every nerve in my body screamed at me to back away, to ignore this, to tell myself it was some misunderstanding. But the sharpness in her tone, the tension in her posture, and the subtle panic in her eyes made it impossible to dismiss. I could feel my pulse in my temples, each beat louder than the last. This can't be happening, I thought. Not now, not today. Yet a part of me, the cautious, skeptical part, wondered how much I had actually known her. How much trust was built on stories she told, smiles she gave, carefully curated truths. "I need to tell you everything," Jenna said, her voice trembling slightly, betraying a mix of fear and guilt. "You deserve to know before it's too late." The air seemed to thicken around me. My hands were clammy, my mind a chaotic storm of doubt, anger, and disbelief. The room, filled with celebration and joy, suddenly felt alien. I realized, with a sinking feeling, that nothing would ever be the same again. I felt the weight of Jenna's words pressing down on me like a storm cloud. Even as I tried to steady my breathing, my heart pounded in my chest, each beat echoing the fear that something I had never imagined could be true was about to unravel my life. The sunlight streaming through the windows now seemed too harsh, highlighting every tiny imperfection in the hall, every wrinkle in the tablecloths, every anxious twitch of a guest. Jenna shifted uncomfortably, glancing over her shoulder as if the walls themselves might have ears. "We should step outside," she murmured, voice low and urgent. "Just for a minute." "I can't say it here." I hesitated. A part of me screamed to run, to tell her this wasn't the time, not here, not during what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. But another part, an uneasy, insistent voice deep in my gut, told me I had to hear her out. The feeling of impending disaster was undeniable as we walked toward a quiet corner near the garden. I noticed the small details I had ignored earlier, the soft rustle of the leaves in the wind, the distant laughter of children playing, the faint clink of champagne glasses. Everything seemed absurdly normal, yet my mind couldn't reconcile that normalcy with the tension coiling tightly in my chest. "Look," Jenna began again, pausing to collect herself. "I've tried to convince myself it wasn't my business. I really did. But I couldn't stop thinking about you, about what's about to happen." I could feel my throat tighten. My hands, which I had been clenching into fists, shook slightly. "Jenna, what is it? Just tell me," I managed to say, trying to keep my voice steady, but failing miserably. The combination of anticipation and fear made every word tremble. Her gaze was sharp now, almost pleading. "You think you know her, and maybe you do. In some ways. But there are things about her past, her habits, that you don't. And you should." I swallowed hard, my mind racing. "Habits?" Past. What the hell could she mean? My chest tightened, and a strange nausea rose in my stomach. My mind flashed to every late-night conversation, every moment of trust, every promise exchanged. Could any of it have been real? Jenna hesitated again, her eyes darting toward the guests inside. I didn't want to ruin this day. I really didn't. But you deserve the truth. Before she walks down that aisle, before it's too late. And there it was, the hook, the moment that would change everything. My hands trembled, my vision blurred slightly with adrenaline and fear. I felt like the ground beneath me had shifted, leaving me unmoored in a celebration that was suddenly alien, threatening. That I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. Okay, tell me. I need to know. Her lips parted, and she began, her voice low and weighted, as though she were preparing to drop a bomb that could shatter everything I believed. That Jenna's eyes flicked around once more, and then she leaned in closer, lowering her voice just enough so that only I could hear. I don't even know where to start, she whispered, her fingers gripping the strap of her bag tightly, knuckles white. I swear, I didn't want to hurt you. But there are things about her past that, they're not small, and they're not pretty. I felt my chest tighten. My hands, which had been trembling slightly, now clenched into fists as I tried to steady my racing thoughts. Not small, not pretty. What the hell does that mean? Every happy memory I had of her suddenly felt fragile, like glass ready to shatter under the slightest pressure. She's been involved with a lot of people before you, Jenna continued, her voice barely above a whisper. Some of it was just casual, but some of it, it's worse. And she's been keeping it secret for a long time. I could feel my stomach twist into knots. The words hit me like a punch I hadn't seen coming. My mind spun, struggling to reconcile the image of the woman I was about to marry with the one Jenna was describing. I had trusted her completely, loved her with everything I had, and now, I didn't know what to think. Why are you telling me this now? I asked, my voice tight, my pulse hammering in my ears. Why today? She swallowed hard, her eyes glistening with something I couldn't immediately place. Fear, guilt, sorrow. Because you deserve to know. You're about to make a lifelong decision, and I couldn't let you do it blind. I tried to find a way not to say anything, but her voice broke slightly, and she looked down at the ground. I couldn't. I ran a hand over my face, trying to block out the swirling panic. I felt the room spin, though the sunlight still streamed lazily through the windows, still catching on the edges of the champagne glasses, still making the flowers glow as if nothing had changed. But everything had changed. Everything. She's not faithful, I asked cautiously, though the pit in my stomach already told me the answer. Jenna hesitated, a faint nod confirming my worst fears. It's not just cheating. It's a pattern. And some of the people involved. You know them. My blood ran cold. My mind reeled as I tried to process the enormity of what she had just revealed. Faces I had trusted, friends and colleagues, intertwined in a past I had never imagined. Every word Jenna spoke cut deeper than the last, each one a blade slicing through the foundation of my trust that I could barely breathe. My thoughts tumbled over one another, racing too fast to make sense. Why didn't I see this? How could she hide it so well? How many lies? How much did I not know? Jenna looked at me, her eyes pleading, desperate. I know this is a lot, and I don't expect you to process it all right now, but you need to know, before she walks down that aisle. And with that, the room around me, the laughter, the chatter, the clinking glasses, all faded into a distant hum. All that remained was the truth, raw and jagged, cutting through the illusion of the perfect day I had imagined. Jenna took a shaky breath, her hands gripping the edge of the railing near the garden as if it could anchor her to the ground. Okay, there's more, she said, her voice trembling. I didn't want to tell you everything at once, but I have to. You deserve the truth. I felt a cold wave of dread wash over me. My palms were clammy, my chest tight, and my vision narrowed to just her face. The truth? How much truth can one person take at once? But I nodded, silently, forcing myself to brace for the storm. She's been with people you would never expect, Jenna whispered, glancing around nervously. Not just casual flings. Some of them were manipulative, controlling, dangerous even. And she hit it perfectly. Everyone she knew believed in her, trusted her. Everyone except you. Until now. My head spun. My stomach churned. I wanted to recoil, to step back, to deny what she was saying, but a part of me knew this wasn't exaggeration or some twisted gossip. There was a weight in her eyes, in the tremble of her voice, that screamed truth. And it's not just the people, Jenna continued, her words coming faster now, spilling out like a river that couldn't be stopped. She lied about her past relationships, her jobs, even her friendships. Things she told you. Half-truths, omissions. Every story had a little mask. Every memory you think is yours. Some of it. She manipulated it, framed it, made sure it would always look perfect. I stumbled slightly, gripping the railing for support. My mind raced, trying to connect all the dots I hadn't even known were there. Was I blind all this time? Did I ever really know her? The images of our late-night talks, the laughter, the plans for the future, they all felt fragile now, like they could crumble at the slightest touch. Jenna hesitated, glancing toward the hall as if expecting someone to burst out of the walls and interrupt. She even used some of your friends to cover things up? They had no idea, of course, but she made sure her secret stayed buried while everyone else, your friends, her family, kept believing in the image she wanted them to see. I could feel anger building in my chest, hot and unrelenting. And yet, it was laced with disbelief, sorrow, and betrayal so deep it left a hollow ache in my stomach. How could she do this? How could anyone trust her, love her, and not see this side? My mind screamed at me, trying to make sense of it all. Each revelation was another brick pulled from the foundation of everything I had thought was real. I felt exposed, raw, like the entire world had shifted and left me standing alone in the wreckage of my own certainty. Jenna's voice softened, almost pleading. I didn't want to hurt you. I really didn't. I tried to stay out of it, but I couldn't. You had a right to know before this day went any further. I couldn't let you marry her without knowing the truth. I swallowed hard, my throat tight, my pulse hammering in my ears. The garden, the hall, the guests, everything seemed like it belonged to another world now. All that mattered was the torrent of secrets crashing over me, leaving nothing untouched. And in that moment, I realized that today, the day I had imagined as perfect, full of joy and love, might now become the day that shattered everything I had built my life around. That I stepped back from Jenna, running a hand over my face, trying to calm the storm raging inside me. The sunlight filtered through the trees, but it no longer felt warm. It felt harsh, like it was exposing every crack in the life I had thought was perfect. I could feel my heartbeat hammering against my ribs, each beat a reminder of the impossible choice before me. Do I tell him? Or do I let it go? The question echoed relentlessly in my mind. On one hand, he deserved the truth, every bit of it. He had the right to know what he was stepping into, to make an informed decision about the woman he was about to marry. But on the other, the wedding was happening now, in a matter of hours. If I spoke, if I revealed everything, I could destroy not just the ceremony, but his entire world in one blow. That I could almost see him in my mind's eye, smiling, full of hope and love, completely unaware of the storm I was carrying. Do I really want to take that from him? My stomach twisted at the thought of his face falling, the confusion, the heartbreak. And yet, can I stand by and do nothing, knowing the truth? Jenna watched me, her eyes heavy with worry and guilt. You have to decide, she said softly. I've done my part. Now it's up to you. I closed my eyes, letting the sounds of the wedding, faint laughter, clinking glasses, distant music, wash over me. Everything felt unreal, like I was suspended between two worlds, one of blissful ignorance, one of harsh reality. The moral weight pressed down on me, relentless, unyielding. That if I tell him, I'm changing his life forever. The thought made my chest tighten, my throat dry. If I stay silent, I'm complicit. And if he finds out later, it will be worse. So much worse that I imagine the confrontation, the heartbreak, the anger. His eyes, wide with shock, the betrayal written across his face, the guests staring in disbelief. Could I handle the aftermath? Could I live with the chaos I would unleash? But then I felt something else, an undeniable, gnawing truth. He deserves the chance to know, to choose for himself. He deserves honesty. I exhaled slowly, trying to steady my trembling hands. My pulse was still racing, but a decision was forming. I would tell him. I couldn't hide this. No matter the consequences, the weight of silence was heavier than the storm I was about to release. Jenna gave a small nod, relief flickering across her face. I knew you'd do the right thing, she said quietly. And in that moment, as the music and laughter from the hall crept closer, I realized the real test wasn't just revealing the truth, it was surviving it. Watching everything I had built tremble and fall. And somehow standing tall afterward, I stepped back from Jenna. My mind betrayed me, flooding with memories I hadn't thought about in months. The sound of her laughter echoed in my ears, so clear and warm, as if it had been playing in the room with me all along. I remembered the night we first met, the way her eyes lit up when she saw me across the coffee shop, the easy charm that had drawn me in instantly that we had spent countless nights talking, sharing secrets, making plans for a future I had imagined in every detail. I remembered our first trip together, how she had laughed at my terrible sense of direction, how we had gotten lost but ended up discovering a hidden little park by the river, quiet and beautiful, just the two of us. Those moments had felt so real, so true, and now, the ground beneath me felt like it had shifted. Each memory, each smile I thought I knew, seemed tainted by Jenna's words. I questioned every late-night call, every whispered promise, every tender gesture. Was any of it genuine? The thought made my chest tighten, my stomach churned as I pictured our first anniversary. The way she had surprised me with that small, hand-painted card, the tears in my eyes as I realized how much I loved her. And now, that love, that trust, felt fragile, like a house of cards teetering on the edge. Did I ever truly know her? The question was relentless, hammering in my mind. I tried to reconcile the woman I had fallen for with the one Jenna was describing, but the images didn't fit. They clashed violently. Light and shadow, joy and deceit, warmth and betrayal. Yet amidst the turmoil, I felt a pang of sadness, almost guilt. For even now, even knowing the storm I was about to unleash, a small part of me clung to those memories, wishing they were enough to protect the illusion of what I had believed. But deep down, I knew they weren't. The truth was coming, and nothing, not even nostalgia, could stop it. I stood there, frozen for a moment, letting the weight of Jenna's revelations settle around me like a storm cloud. The sunlight on the garden seemed almost cruel now, mocking the chaos inside me. My mind raced through possibilities, consequences, and outcomes. Every second felt stretched, as though the world had slowed down to watch me make this impossible choice. I stay silent? I asked myself, the question echoing relentlessly. Do I let him walk down that aisle blind, trusting someone who isn't what she seems? The thought made my stomach twist in knots. Could I live with myself if I did nothing? If I let deception triumph over truth? And yet, the thought of speaking out terrified me. The wedding was already in motion. Guests were arriving, cameras set up, friends and family smiling and laughing. To interrupt that, to shatter the day that so many had been looking forward to, it felt monumental. Could one conversation undo months of preparation, years of planning, a lifetime of expectation? But then I remembered his face earlier, full of hope, love, trust. The innocence in his eyes, the same eyes that had believed in her completely. He deserves the truth, I reminded myself, voice barely audible even in my own head. He deserves to choose for himself, to know before it's too late. That I glanced at Jenna, whose nervous energy mirrored my own. She nodded slightly, as if reading my thoughts. He has a right to know, she said softly, her words more of a confirmation than a suggestion. That I exhaled slowly, trying to steady my trembling hands. My pulse was still racing, but the decision had solidified like concrete in my chest. I would tell him. I had to. I couldn't betray him by keeping this secret, no matter how much it might hurt, no matter how chaotic the fallout. This is it, I thought, the moment that would change everything. I felt a rush of fear, anger, and determination all at once. My stomach churned, but my mind was resolute. I would confront him. I would give him the knowledge he deserved, even if it shattered the perfect image of his wedding day. And as the music and laughter from the hall crept closer, I realized that honesty, no matter how brutal, was the only way forward. I squared my shoulders, feeling the tension in my chest settle into a cold, determined focus. The storm was coming, and I had decided to face it head-on. I led him to a quieter corner of the garden, away from the chatter, the music, and the oblivious guests. The air was heavy, almost suffocating, and my hands shook slightly as I prepared to speak. Every word I was about to utter felt like a hammer striking a fragile glass sculpture. There was no undoing it once it left my lips. Hey, I started, my voice unsteady, forcing myself to meet his eyes. I, I need to tell you something important. Something you should know before anything else happens today. He looked at me, his smile fading into a mix of curiosity and concern. What is it? His tone was light, unaware, trusting, and that trust made the pit in my stomach twist even tighter that I took a deep breath. It's about her. Your fiancée. About her past. His brow furrowed slightly, confusion flickering across his face. What do you mean? Jenna was behind me, giving me a small nod of encouragement. I could feel her presence, a silent reassurance that I wasn't making a mistake by speaking the truth. She's not entirely honest about her past relationships. I began, my voice steadying as I forced the words out. Some of the things she's told you, the stories she's shared, they aren't the full truth. There are people she's been involved with, more than you realize. And some of those relationships, they weren't just casual. They were complicated, messy, and she's kept it hidden. I watched his face change in real time. The initial confusion twisted into disbelief, then suspicion, and finally a creeping sense of dread. His jaw tightened, eyes widening slightly, as he tried to process the words. I don't understand, he said, his voice trembling now. Are you saying she cheated? I shook my head quickly, trying to clarify. It's more than that. It's patterns, repeated secrets, things that show she's been hiding entire parts of her life. People, situations, that could affect you. And you deserve to know. Before it's too late. His hands went to his face, running over his mouth as if to stop the words, to buy time while his mind caught up. The color drained from his cheeks, replaced by a mixture of anger, confusion, and heartbreak that I could feel his pain like a physical weight pressing down on me. And yet I knew this was necessary. The day might never be the same, but at least it would be honest. Why? Why are you telling me this now? He asked, voice barely above a whisper. Because I can't let you marry her blind, I said firmly, my own chest tight with tension. You deserve the truth. All of it. And I couldn't stay silent, not today. He closed his eyes, taking a shuddering breath. The festive sounds of the wedding hall seemed distant now, irrelevant. His world was cracking open before him, and there was nothing to do but face it. His hands dropped slowly to his sides, trembling slightly. The sunlight caught on his eyes, wide and unblinking, and I could see the disbelief etched into every line of his face. He looked like someone had pulled the ground out from under him, leaving him suspended in midair, teetering on a cliff he hadn't seen coming. I don't understand, he muttered, his voice rough, almost broken. You're saying she lied about all this? All those stories? Everything I thought I knew. I nodded, carefully, my chest tight. I know it's a lot, and I wish I didn't have to tell you like this. But it's true. She's hidden more than you realize. And I thought, no, I knew. You deserve to know before making the biggest decision of your life. His mind seemed to reel, trying to catch up. He ran a hand through his hair, gripping it tightly, his knuckles white. The laughter and music from inside the hall felt distant, irrelevant, like it belonged to a world he no longer inhabited. Some of the people she was involved with. You know them, I added carefully, testing his reaction. His eyes snapped to mine, panic and horror mingling. What? What do you mean? Friends? Colleagues? I hesitated, then said gently, yes. And it's not just casual dating. There were manipulations, lies, things that could hurt you if you weren't aware. I didn't want to ruin the day, but I couldn't let you walk in blind. He stumbled back a step, his face paling. His breath came in short, sharp bursts. I can't believe this, he whispered, disbelief and betrayal blending into a single, heavy weight on his chest. I thought I knew her. I thought I knew her completely. I saw the internal struggle flicker across his face. The love, the trust, the hope, all clashing violently with the new reality I had forced upon him. His hands shook as he ran them over his face, trying to absorb the shock, to ground himself in something real. I need to think, he muttered, voice hollow. I can't even process this right now. I nodded silently, giving him space. But the look in his eyes, devastation, confusion, betrayal, was seared into my memory. The perfect day he had imagined had shattered, and there was no way to put the pieces back together. And in that moment, I realized the truth was both a gift and a curse. He had the knowledge he deserved, but the cost. The cost was everything he had believed in. He didn't speak for a long moment, just stood there, staring blankly at the garden path. His shoulders were tense, his hands twitching at his sides, and I could see the way his jaw clenched every few seconds. Even from a distance, I knew something had shifted. Something fundamental. A few guests wandered outside, curious about the sudden quiet in the garden. Aunt Linda approached, cheerfulness faltering slightly as she took in his pale, tense expression. "Everything okay?" she asked, tilting her head. He forced a smile, one of those strained, hollow smiles that barely mask inner turmoil, and nodded, though it didn't reach his eyes. Yeah, fine," he said, voice tight. But the sharp edge of tension in his tone didn't escape anyone, and the confusion on their faces was evident. Whispers began to ripple through the nearby guests. People exchanged glances, subtly leaning toward each other, trying to interpret the sudden change in atmosphere. The laughter and music from the hall suddenly seemed louder. Contrasting sharply with the heavy tension radiating from him, I could see his hand twitch slightly as he ran it through his hair, the color draining further from his face. I knew he was replaying everything I had told him in his mind, trying to reconcile the woman he loved with the version Jenna had described. And the more he thought, the more the storm grew inside him. "Is he okay?" one guest murmured to another, a hint of concern threading through their voice. "He looks off. Scared, almost." Another nodded, frowning. "Yeah, and he's not saying anything. Something's happened." The tension became almost tangible, like electricity hanging in the air. Every gesture he made, every forced smile, every flicker of hesitation was picked up by the guests. Some tried to mask their worry with polite smiles. Others whispered, leaning closer to one another, trying to decipher what had gone wrong. I stayed close, keeping my presence subtle but supportive. I could feel the burden of the secret, the heavy responsibility of revealing the truth, pressing down on me. And yet, I couldn't back down now, not when the consequences of silence were so much greater. His eyes caught mine for a brief moment, and I saw the storm inside him mirrored there. Shock, disbelief, heartbreak, and a trembling, desperate need for understanding. I nodded slightly, silently reassuring him that he wasn't alone, even as the weight of the revelation spread outward, touching everyone around us. The joyous illusion of the wedding was unraveling, thread by thread, and the guests, now sensing the undercurrent, began to realize that something monumental was about to erupt. He stepped back, running a hand through his hair again, his face pale, jaw tight. I can't believe this," he muttered, voice shaking with a mix of anger, disbelief, and heartbreak. His eyes darted around, as if searching for answers in the garden itself. All this time, and I had no idea." I took a careful step closer, my voice steady but soft. "I know it's hard to hear, but you deserve to know everything. Nothing should be hidden from you on your wedding day." He turned sharply to me, the fury in his eyes barely contained. "Everything? Are you serious? How much of it? Tell me everything now." I hesitated, measuring my words. "I've already told you some of the worst parts. But there's more. Things about her relationships, her habits, the people she's been involved with. Some of them you know." His hands trembled violently now, his body taut, every muscle coiled. "People I know?" he repeated, disbelief bleeding into panic. "Friends? Colleagues? She involved them in?" His voice broke mid-sentence, the weight of betrayal crashing over him. Jenna looked at me, her own hands shaking, and nodded for me to continue. "Yes," I said carefully. "Some were manipulated, lied to. She made sure her secret stayed buried while everyone else, friends, family, remained unaware. She painted a perfect picture for everyone but you." He staggered back, gripping the railing as though it could anchor him to reality. His eyes darted toward the wedding hall, toward the guests, toward the place where she was about to walk down the aisle, and then back at me. "Why didn't anyone tell me sooner? Why not me?" His voice was raw, a mixture of anguish and rage. That I could feel his pain like a physical weight pressing against my chest. "Because she hid it well, and no one suspected. I'm the first to see the truth," I admitted. "And I couldn't let you marry her without knowing." He shook his head, disbelief and fury warring in his expression. I don't even know who she is anymore. I don't know what to think. How can someone I trusted, loved be like this?" The distant music from the hall now felt unbearably loud, intrusive, as if mocking the chaos unfolding just steps away from celebration. Guests nearby whispered, sensing the storm, and the air itself seemed charged with tension. And then, for the first time, he let himself break. His shoulders slumped, his hands covering his face, and a shuddering breath escaped him. The rage, disbelief, heartbreak, and betrayal collided in a raw, unfiltered storm. He was no longer the smiling, hopeful groom. He was a man confronted with a truth that threatened to dismantle everything he had believed about love, trust, and the person he had chosen to spend his life with. The garden felt surreal now, like the world had shifted and left reality behind. He stood there, shoulders slumped, eyes distant, as if trying to absorb the tidal wave of truth that had crashed over him. His breathing was uneven, sharp inhales and long, shaky exhales, and I could see the exhaustion written in every line of his face. I don't know what to do," he murmured, voice hollow. I can't go in there and pretend nothing happened." I nodded slowly, understanding the weight he carried. "You don't have to. You need to process this first. This isn't about anyone else right now. It's about you and the truth you deserve." He rubbed his face with both hands, pressing as if trying to block out the memories, the revelations, the lies. Everything I thought I knew. Gone. Just like that. All those plans, the future I imagined. It's like it never existed. Jenna and I exchanged a glance, the unspoken acknowledgement passing between us. The weight of the moment was immense. I could feel the tension radiating from him, the raw pain of betrayal and disbelief. Yet there was something else too, a spark, a recognition that he now held the power to make a choice based on truth, not illusion. "Thank you," he whispered finally, almost to himself, "for telling me, for being honest." His voice cracked, but there was a note of resolve buried beneath the anguish. "Even if it destroys everything today, I need to know. I need to face this honestly." The guests inside had begun to murmur, sensing the disruption, but he didn't notice them. His world had narrowed to the garden, to the revelation, to the truth he had just received. The illusion of the perfect day had shattered, but the raw, unfiltered reality was now in his hands that I felt a mixture of relief and sorrow. Relief that he knew, that he could act from knowledge, not deception. Sorrow for the heartbreak, the innocence lost, the trust shattered. Weddings were supposed to be moments of joy, of union, but this one had become a crucible, a test of integrity, resilience, and the limits of trust. He straightened slowly, taking a deep breath. His eyes, though haunted, held clarity. "I need a moment," he said, voice firmer now, the first sign of decision forming. "I need to think, and then I'll decide what to do next." And in that moment, I realized that the storm we had unleashed was only the beginning. The day would never be the same, but at least it would be real. He stood at the edge of the garden, the sunlight hitting him in sharp angles, casting long shadows over the neatly trimmed grass. His face was pale, jaw tight, eyes scanning the distance as if searching for answers that didn't exist. Guests peeked through the doors, whispers growing louder, but he seemed to exist in a bubble, isolated, suspended between the life he imagined and the truth he now faced. I don't know if I can forgive this," he muttered, more to himself than anyone else. His voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of a man balancing on the precipice of his world. "I don't know if I can trust again, or even love like I did." I stepped closer, careful not to crowd him. "You have every right to feel that way. No one would blame you. But at least now, you can choose." He ran a hand over his face, shaking his head slowly. "Choose but what? To call off everything? To confront her now, in front of everyone?" The fear, anger, and heartbreak collided in his voice, raw and jagged. "Or pretend like I didn't hear a word, and marry her anyway? I don't even know what's worse." The wind rustled through the leaves above, carrying the distant laughter, music, and chatter from inside the hall. The juxtaposition was brutal, celebration on one side, devastation on the other. His eyes flicked toward the open doors, toward the wedding setup, toward the woman he thought he knew. And then he turned to me, gaze steady despite the storm inside. I need time," he said, voice firm despite the tremor in his hands. "Time to think. Time to decide if this, all of this, is something I can face." I nodded, silently understanding. The moment was suspended, balanced on a knife edge between revelation and resolution. Nothing had been settled, nothing had been forgiven, nothing had been shattered beyond repair, or perhaps everything had. And in that instant, the entire wedding seemed to hold its breath. Every guest, every sound, every expectation was irrelevant. The future rested entirely in his hands. As he walked slowly back toward the hall, each step deliberate and heavy. I realized this was the moment that would define everything: trust, love, betrayal, and the impossible choice that would shape the rest of his life. The questions hung in the air, unanswered and echoing. Would he confront her, call it all off, or step into the ceremony, carrying the weight of the truth like a hidden scar? And with that uncertainty, the story, like the perfect illusion of the day, remained suspended, raw, and unresolved, leaving everyone, including him, on the edge of what could never be unseen.